Morning.
What day is it? What day is eclipse?
Yeah, no, it's
Monday.
weather. All right,
I
everybody.
think it is Wednesday now that
Morning, maybe it's good. How are you?
On this, good morning, on this beautiful spring day.
yeah. Need to look a lot like Christmas.
Yeah.
Got those color glasses.
I was told that I have a high opinion of humanity, and I do. So I'll keep my my happy spirit. So it is Wednesday, April 3rd. This is the Kane County Executive Committee, and it is 9:02. And clerk, would you please call the roll?
Allen. Bates.
Bates here.
Berman.
Here.
Davis.
Davis here.
Ford. Gums.
Comes here.
Caius.
Guys present.
Kenyon. Lewis.
Who's here?
Linder.
Here on remote.
Molina.
Molina present.
Sanchez.
Sanchez present.
Strathman.
Strathman here. Remote.
Burgess.
Surges present remote.
Tepe.
Deputy here.
Kirog.
Here.
You have an in-person quorum.
Thank you. And Mr. Surgis asked for admission due to work. Mr. Linder, Strathman, I can hear your call. And Mr. Davis, I think it's for work. Is that correct?
Mine is still work, yes.
Yes, okay. May they be admitted? Yes, everybody agrees? Okay, very good.
Yeah, why
So
not?
welcome. All right, would like to, who hasn't done it for a while? Mr. Caius, could you please lead the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to
For which it
stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty
liberty and
for all.
Very good, thank you.
Brought the gavel.
All right, may I please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 6th, 2024?
Madam Chair, this is Caius. I would ask for unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes from March 6, 2024.
We have unanimous consent? Yes, everybody, aye, please, aye, yes?
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, we have several speakers for public comment. To my knowledge, these speakers are all requesting to speak off agenda. And the first, they will be allowed 3 minutes due to off agenda. And the first speaker I have listed here signed up was Brian Anderson. Good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Good morning, Brian Anderson, Sugar Grove, Illinois. So my topic is taking us back to the Public Service Committee on March 21st. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. Any of you that have sat on that or watched the video, it was the proclamation. I want to thank Anita Williams. Excuse me, my apologies.
Go by anything.
Anita Lewis. She had the courage and boldness to vote with the other Republicans to push that forward. And I thought it was going to be on agenda today. So we still wait patiently for that conversation to be had. I'm going off track for a moment, but I was just informed this morning that regardless of Kane County, I think it's up in Winnebago County and a few others, they're on the same page, we the people. They're challenging, encouraging their counties to make a public stand. Now, here's why I spoke today. You got to go to the hour and 25-minute mark where it gets just incredibly interesting to me. I'm just a citizen that started to come to these meetings for a different purpose over a year ago. And as I've stayed and I go deeper and deeper, I'm just baffled. Okay. So we've got board member Molina cautioning, challenging. We've got to be careful. We've got people watching. I hope they're watching. I hope they're watching me. I hope they're listening to me because I don't want to be beholden to lobbyists. I don't know. As a citizen, I didn't know we had a lobby group until I did some research. Then I called a couple board members. One board member, I have no idea who they are. The other board member did. I'm not allowed to talk to them. That baffles me. Then I did some Googling, and I guess, according to the Daily Herald, so don't take my opinion, May 11th, 2023, Kane County engages. Are you ready for this? Thank you, Mr. Caius. Are you ready for this? $10,000 a month we're paying a lobby group? Why? For what? We, the people, do not want to be beholden to a lobby group. So when these board members are saying, we're scared, people are listening, there's going to be consequences, I say, great. Let the consequences come. This is not what we want. Do your jobs here in Kane County. Why would we be, Mr. Roth, why would we be paying $10,000 a month to a lobby group when we're clamoring for money here in Kane County? I implore each and every one of you, Mr. Tepe, to take a look. Why do we do that? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. The next speaker today is Michelle Betteg.
Michelle Betteg, St. Charles. I'm kind of along the same line. I anticipated the public service topic of the proclamation to be on today's agenda. I'm assuming it will go right straight to the county board. I too witnessed some crazy stuff happening. I would assume every single board member would want to protect the Kane County citizens, which is in the Constitution, by the way, for US citizens only to vote. As we know, Pritzker wants to issue government state licensing on July 1st, which would automatically enroll illegal migrants to be able to vote. They would be on the voter rolls. However, as Leslie Juby mentioned in the bill that's in front of the Illinois, that they would almost be threatened with the ability to have citizenship if they in fact do vote. So then you question yourself, why would they want them on the voter rolls if they can't vote, or they're being threatened? If you do vote, you might get trouble and you might not be able to stay here. So that makes me wonder if the census is an issue, we know we're losing a ton of citizens here in Illinois, Kane County also, or if they want to use those votes down the road. Either event, every single board member here, it's constitutional to vote only US citizens. It's a no-brainer. Yes, absolutely. We want to protect our elections here in Kane County. The fear I saw in that room on the 21st was astounding. The fear of somebody up in the sky watching down here was astounding. I can't believe that you are representing us and you're being held hostage by Springfield. Madam Chair, you've signed the deal with the devil, with Pritzker, with Springfield, with getting flown to Washington, D.C. Why is Kane County such a hot spot? It's a swing county. Clearly it is. It's a swing county. They want us. That's why Jack Cunningham's getting the $2 million, award for having an outstanding election, which is his job anyway. So, it makes me crazy. I hope this is on the agenda for the board meeting. I hope that you all 24-0 should vote. Yes, we need to protect Kane County elections, no brainer. And another thing too is the referendum. I'm watching closely this whole finance. Thanksgiving this past year, we didn't get to approve the budget till then. There's so many expenses. Cut the expenses. You are the safety stop. I don't want to see a referendum on the ballot. I don't want more taxes increased. You just wanted to build a $50 million building. We have all this money. Stop taking this money from Springfield. All it's doing is committing us to spend more money. Our kids can't afford to buy homes. Chicago Metro Agency, I'm talking fast and I'm throwing things out because there's so many things wrong. Chicago Metro Agency is paying to send all these illegals here. They're getting busted every night at 11 p.m.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Kim Sieber.
hopefully you heard everything that they said, because obviously I agree 1,000%. I would hope that every single one of you do too. But my big thing about this sanctuary thing is I know, oh yeah, Illinois is a sanctuary state. Well, you know what? You can buy alcohol everywhere in Illinois, except there are dry counties. So why can't we be the safe and secure county? That would really increase people wanting to come and live in Kane County versus get out of here, because they're sending the buses here, all the illegals here because the city doesn't want them. That's ridiculous. I mean, these people, you guys, I've told you before, they are not poor. I lived in South America for 4 years. They're not poor. I know what poor people look like. And I've also been in a war, not the old ones, where I was evacuated. All the women and children came. The men didn't come. They all stayed. So I don't understand any of that, because these are all mostly men coming, and they're definitely not poor. So I don't even know why we should be handing them. And I just read somewhere they're allowed to sue. And if somebody does something wrong now, they're allowed to sue. They can have guns, they can get everything. What the heck is going on? These people are given more rights than we, the people. So why can't we be the county that actually speaks up and says, no more of this. We don't have to listen to the governor. I don't even know why he is a governor, because he obviously isn't doing it for the money. He's a billionaire. But anyway, you don't have to do it. You can go against it and vote for we the people. You guys live here too. You know what happens? Spring sanctuaries. Now we're going to have the squatters. Listen to what's going on all over the United States, where these people, you go away for a weekend, you come home and there's people in your house. And then the police don't even get rid of them. They arrest you. It's absolutely insane. So why don't we make Kane County a sane county?
There we go. My microphone is working. That ends the public comment. Thank you all for coming. Ms. Hopkinson.
Hello, I'm going to give the same presentation I gave at the Finance Committee last week, except maybe a shorter condensed version. So in our monthly finance packet, let's see, let's get it up there. While Blair is getting it, there we go. I'll just mention that the 2024 budget book should be in all of your mailboxes by the end of today. And was up on the website last week. And we filed it with the GFOA for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award.
Kathy, could you get closer to your mic
Sure.
as well?
Sure. I'll start with the report on 2023, which is we're still closing 2023. The audit is due on May 31st. The general fund, which is the fund that houses most of the county employees and most of the county operations, as you know, has been suffering from deficits the last several years and is projected to continue to have deficits. The projection for 2023 is that we will end the fiscal year with 114.4 million in expenses and 107.7 million in revenue. And as you know, our budget for 2024, we projected a $9 million loss. And we're projecting that for 2011, we would have an $11 million loss. Yeah. These are some highlights of our non-property tax revenues, select tax revenues across the county. Everything in yellow means it's basically within reason compared to our budget and prior year. Anything in green is performing better. Anything in red, not as expected. The graphs are actually a better picture of what's happening. The top graph are the sales taxes and the personal property replacement tax type revenue. The bottom graph are two motor fuel taxes. As you know, we have a the county receives a state motor fuel tax, and the county also has a local county motor fuel tax. All of the motor fuel tax revenue goes to King County's Department of Transportation. It cannot be used for anything but transportation. Highlights of our cannabis revenue and our local government distributive fund revenue. I'll just highlight that the state, because this is always an interesting topic for everybody, but our state cannabis revenue comes to the county through our local government distributive fund. We get a share of what is collected. And as you know, we were able to start finally reporting on this cannabis tax revenue starting last July, because there's now more than 5 dispensaries in King County. Personal property replacement tax revenue continues to fluctuate significantly. This tax revenue is distributed to the county based on an estimate conducted by the state of Illinois, and they have indicated that their estimate for a couple of years ago was actually too high. So we expect that our personal property replacement tax revenue that we receive here will actually be lower this year. This chart shows both our state and local cannabis tax revenue. The bars in blue are the local county cannabis tax revenue. The local cannabis tax revenue goes into our general fund. We get about $100,000 a month. The state cannabis tax revenue goes into a special fund, which is overseen by our sheriff's office and can only be used for law enforcement purposes. This is the status of our union contracts. To date, there's still a few that are in negotiations. At the Finance Committee, it was asked that I provide the board members with a list of all of the union contracts, percent increases for the next several years. You should have all received that. It's also been asked, where can I find all the union contracts? They're all on the King County website. So any member of the public can find all of our union contracts on our King County websites. This is a historical report of just the wages, not benefits, just wages, gross salaries for all of the county departments for all funds. So this is the general fund plus all the special revenue funds. And just a reminder again that nearly all of county employees are paid out of the general fund except for transportation, health, Veterans Commission, CANECOM, Law Library. Pretty much everybody else is paid out of the general fund. And I'll just skip ahead. Just some highlights. We're working on the 2025 budget. Also just wanted to highlight for departments who have questions about the current 2024 budget as well as the 2025 budget. The county did not budget any merit increase money in the 2024 budget for county employees, and the current plan for the 2025 budget does not include any merit increases for county employees. But that I just wanted to put that out there because that question has come up frequently in the last couple of weeks. And I'm just going to skip through the rest of this and go into the PowerPoint presentation to talk about the 2025 budget. Wait for those slides to get up. The presentation.
Kathy, could I ask a question,
Sure.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Oh, I see your hand. Yes, of course, Mr. Sturgis, absolutely.
Kath, I'm just wondering, when we go through these, and if you present it to finance, if there's any changes that you've made, are you letting us know of those or?
Yeah, I haven't made any changes since last, this is the same presentation I gave last week.
Okay, in the future though, if there is a change, will you just flag that for us?
I will.
Thank you. Sorry.
And changes into the amount, Mr. Sturgis, a little bit more specific.
And well, if you're giving a
budgeting.
presentation that you say I gave in a prior committee, if there's changes to that presentation, I would appreciate if they were flagged. And
Oh,
so I'm just trying
absolutely.
to understand, just in the cadence is that, does Kathy do that or should we be looking for those? So that's just a question.
Oh, no, she would.
No, yeah, I would mention
She
that.
would have to have it red flagged for us to
Yeah,
pay
these-
attention.
Fully appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, these are the same slides. I haven't made any changes to any of these slides. Okay.
I don't know how to unlower my hand. Sorry. Thanks.
There you go.
Oh.
So we're talking about the 2025 budget and beyond. The county is currently operating, you could say that the strategic financial plan for the county right now is to spend down its reserves. And so this is just a chart that shows just for the general fund, because again, the general fund is the only fund that continues to have deficits. The 2023 general fund revenues, we required $6.6 million of fund balance in order to fund expenses, in order to pay bills. We had to use our fund balance. The 2024 budget, we plan to use $9.6 million to pay bills, 9.6 of our fund balance. And for 2025, I was asked to put together a forecast that shows a 3% increase in revenues and expenses, which would be a very modest increase considering the cost of everything has gone up. But if you do that, we would need $11 million of our fund balance to pay for bills. So what happens when you keep doing this? And you're increasing expenses and not increasing revenues. If you forecast that out through, let's say, 2028, essentially by 2027, we will be digging into our emergency reserves in order to pay bills. And by 2028, we would essentially be using up our reserves. So if you're looking at this, it's not something that I would recommend, but if you're looking at the county's financing plan for the next few years, it's to spend down and use up all of our reserves to the point where we would essentially be forced to lay off probably at least 200 employees. If we continue along this trend and if there is no change to how we budget or raise revenues.
Ms. Hopkinson?
Yeah.
So could we go back to the other slide, please? You're mentioning that by 27, we will be in deficit spending into the emergency fund. And then in 28, how much is in that emergency fund altogether, please?
Well,
just
the sort of the best practice is to have at least 90 days of reserves at any time. The calculation is done by saying 90 days of what your budget is, what your budgeted expenses are. You should have at least 90 days of your total expenditure. So that number will change from year to year. And so I have it on that line there, that based on a budget that would increase about 3% each year, you'd need $30 to $36 million would be considered your emergency reserves. And again, I need to point out our general fund, the county, unlike a lot of other counties, does not have doesn't have something called like a sinking fund or any other fund that can be used for facilities maintenance and to do capital improvements, technology improvements. So our general fund is the main source, primary source of revenue to fund all of our capital projects, our technology improvements, our facilities maintenance, et cetera. The first couple years of this forecast, I have not included a transfer of general fund revenues to our capital projects fund. But I have in the years 2026 to 2028. Because if I'm doing this, I'm putting essentially the employees ahead of capital improvements for the first few years here. But that would be something that down the road, again, it's a choice of the board. Do you fund capital improvements or do you fund employee salaries? And these are some of the really hard choices that are coming to the county in the next couple of years.
And I have another question.
Mhm.
Just regarding the reserve fund, the 90-day reserve for $30 to $36 million I know that the board recently passed a resolution, moving that to a 90-day policy. But is that state mandated or is that just best practice?
It's a best practice. And if you look around our surrounding counties, that's typical to have 90 days. There are some counties that have 180 days, which would be requiring even a larger reserve, but 90 days is a good, solid place to be. It's something that the rating agencies, if they're looking at us, would consider a good best practice target fund balance to have.
And do we need a certain amount of money, I'm going to say to float, as they're waiting for the tax revenue to come in so that we can keep the lights on and paychecks going through?
Well, in terms of how much, well, that's, ask that question again.
So sometimes I know with school districts, there's a certain amount of time that you get your tax revenue. And
Right.
then you use that tax revenue for period of time until you
Right.
get your next check.
Yeah, I don't know that Kane County has had that problem recently where we've needed to issue debt.
No, I'm
or-
not suggesting
right.
that, but we just have to have money put aside to pay for day-to-day expenses. Is that part of that 36 million, or is that just the 36 million is put into account and just saved?
The 36 million is a recommended amount that we should keep on hand
Okay.
for emergencies.
Okay, not to touch, it's a savings account then, more or less.
It's basically saying if you didn't receive revenues, how many months is a good target to operate without, let's say something happened and the state didn't give us money for several months.
That's what.
Right.
yes.
How long could we function without incoming cash? Because we get all of our revenues we get throughout the year, right? Sales tax comes every month. The motor fuel tax comes every month. The property taxes come within a window, June through September. But let's say the state decided or something happened, right? And we weren't receiving our tax revenues like we would be used to receiving. How many months could we function and pay bills without taking in new revenue? So that's why 3 months is a good target.
Okay, so thank you for allowing me this and everybody this long question. So what I was getting to is that by 29, of all things being equal on this proposed forecasting that you have, by 29, the reserves would be depleted.
Yes,
Yes, okay,
yes,
thank you.
yes. And just to, go back on this, how did the county get here? The county would have had deficit spending in years 2020, 2021, and 2022 had the county not used CARES Act and ARPA monies to pay salaries. So that using those federal grant monies to pay day-to-day operating expenses essentially covered up what a deficit that we already had, which, my predecessor sort of also was telling the same story as I'm telling.
Yes.
So, okay. And then the general fund, this is
Oh,
just
hold
the
on,
picture.
excuse me, we've got glasses on. Mr. Davis, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Davis, with a question. Just trying to, excuse me, follow when did we decide on the $3 million transfer for capital projects to not be done in these current years, but start being done 26 through 28?
Because right now for 2024, the capital projects fund has enough money in the fund to complete all of its projects for 2024.
Was that something that we decide? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember, a policy decision like that being made by the board, and my memory's not great, so maybe that happened, and I don't remember, but
It's not a policy decision. It just for 2024, we didn't need to transfer any funds into the capital project funds in order for all of the capital projects funds that are in the 5-year capital project plan. In order for them to be completed, we didn't need to transfer money into that fund.
we don't have a list that goes beyond the currently funded ones?
Right, we have a 5-year capital plan. But for purposes of the 2024 budgets, we didn't need to transfer money in for 2024.
Well, that's a debate that I'm sure many people would engage in on whether you need to do that, continue to put money into a capital project fund or not. So
Right.
again, I just didn't remember making that decision and was curious about how we got to that particular spot where we didn't do it now, but we're going to start doing it. I hear your answer. I just didn't remember how we,
Yeah,
came to
if you do a look back, the county traditionally has always transferred money as part of the annual budget. They've transferred money into the general fund. They've transferred general fund money into the capital projects fund.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Bates.
Thank you. Do we have those numbers here for how much the CARES Act paid for salaries?
So over 3 years, it's about $30 million, which
So-
is
Okay, thank you.
between CARES and ARPA Act money. And the reason why it was eligible to be used for one of the eligibility requirements for ARPA was that money could be used. I'm going to paint a broad stroke here, but essentially for first responder type situations. And so the sheriff's adult correction staff, so these are the staff that work inside the county jail, because they're in close quarters, that was eligible. So essentially that was the bulk of it. So essentially the sheriff's adult correction staff, essentially all of them, all of their salaries and benefits and their FICA and their pension was covered by CARES and ARPA Act money for a little over 2.5 years.
So, so when we look at reserves in excess of 90-day target, all those numbers would be $30 million less. if
Right,
it
and
weren't for-
that is why we have, if you look at this chart,
We'd be at about zero right now.
that is why our fund balance went up, because we normally would be using all of our tax revenue to pay salaries, but we were able to essentially save our tax revenue because we were using CARES Act and ARPA funds to pay salaries. And so our tax revenue went to our sales tax revenue, our property tax revenue, everything else went to the bottom. And so our fund balance went up. And now all of that money is gone. Sort of the veil has been, pulled back, and our expenses are still at that same level, right? We still have all those sheriff's adult correction officers, and we still are continuing to pay them. But now we're eating through
So this
our
is,
fund balance.
this is the
Right.
financial cliff that's coming.
If nothing
after-
changes, right?
Okay. Go ahead, please.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Oh, wait,
So,
we've got another question.
Yep.
Hold on. This is good.
I was just going to remind us, addressing Mr. Davis' comment
Okay.
that we had a number of years when at the end of the year, we had more revenue than expenses. So what to do with that money? We were I think, very careful about putting some of it into capital. And then those rainy day funds that we had that now have been gathered together came out of that excess revenue during those years also. We had one to protect us from a needed, if there was a need for an increase in property taxes, we could turn to that fund. If we had a surprise like the IMRF surprise where we had to toss a whole lot of extra money into IMRF, we would have those funds set aside to cover those. But a bunch of it every year went into capital.
Correct.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Tepe?
Madam Chair, thank you. Just to point out, last Wednesday at the Finance Committee meeting, I put on a presentation highlighting in a slightly different way the kinds of things that Kathy has been presenting to us. And I had that presentation sent out to all the board members. And it really relates to what our major options are in relationship to handling the budget gap that's going to be continuing to increase. And I'll be happy to privately answer any questions about that, but I'd suggest that everybody take a good look at that and try to understand what our major options are in handling the budget gap going forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So going on. And then also just capital, because I wanted to put capital into the consideration too. We are refining the buildings management department and myself. We are refining a process that would put a framework around capital projects and essentially classify and rank them for presentation to the county board. And this is still a draft, but essentially capital projects would be ranked in the order of obviously life safety type projects first. Number 2, projects that preserve assets and property. Number 3, projects that maintain or improve security. 4, projects that are related to just general wear and tear, depreciation, maintenance, and repair type projects. And then lastly, projects that are new, additional, or desired type capital improvements, like an office remodeling, something like that. We talked about funding options, that on the revenue side, the county has the ability to increase property taxes. The county board has also the ability to increase the local option motor fuel tax, which the county board probably 25, 30 years ago voted to put the motor fuel tax into place. The county has the ability to reallocate the RTA transportation sales tax revenue that comes into the county. The county can decide how much goes to the general fund versus how much goes to transportation. There's the special county retailers occupation tax, which would go to referendum. And then there's grants, financing. I hope we wouldn't be getting to the point where we would be issuing debt in order to pay general operating expenses.
My camera's on.
And then this was just a comparison again. I put this presentation together last fall. I have not updated it. I just brought it back in. This is comparing Kane, DuPage, McHenry, and Lake counties, the main collar counties, comparing their tax revenues, and then just taking their tax revenues and divided by the population in that county. And Kane County has the lowest taxes per population of all of the main collar counties. What are some of the differences? I'll start with McHenry. McHenry's property tax rate is more than twice the property tax rate in Kane County. That's the actual rate. So they have significant property tax revenue funding their operations. DuPage has a lower property tax rate, but they have significant sales tax revenue because of a lot of the shopping that is taxed in DuPage County. They've got Oak Brook, they've got Naperville. So they bring in almost 3 times the amount of tax revenue, sales tax revenue than Kane. Lake County obviously brings in a much higher property tax revenue, significant amount of property tax revenue. All 4 of these counties have the local motor fuel tax. DuPage, and the local motor fuel tax is a tax that is indexed to the consumer price index. So it goes up as the consumer price index goes up. Counties by state statute are allowed to raise it up to 8 cents. And then after 8 cents, it can continue to go up. So currently Kane County is at 4.5 cents. DuPage years ago raised it to 8 cents. They're currently at 9.1 cents. McHenry last fall in September voted to increase their local motor fuel tax to 8 cents. And Lake is at 4.5, Kane is at 4.7. Also, McHenry County just 2 weeks ago voted to put in the special county retailers occupation tax for mental health.
And that was at 1%, I believe.
I'm not sure.
I think it
of the
was at
percent.
1.
I'm not sure of the percent. The history of property tax extension in Kane County. So every year, the state of Illinois issues a letter in January, which is the guidance for all taxing bodies. And the CPI for 2024 is 3.4%. You can see the history going back to 2012 of what the consumer price index has been. Kane County has not raised its property taxes in probably 14 going on 15 years. And yet costs continue to go up. This is just a history. You can also find this in our financial reports that are online. This is a history of the property tax levies that have been extended. All of these are separate funds in the county, but it's one levy at the end of the day. And the county has the ability to move and reallocate the property tax levy dollar amount. So like that 58 million, the county has the ability to reallocate which fund receives that property tax revenue. So that's why you can see over the years, sometimes the insurance liability fund has a little bit more. Sometimes IMRF has a little bit more. County highway, county bridge, county highway matching, county health departments are pretty, they really haven't changed over the years. The RTA transportation sales tax, which by state statute can only be used for 2 purposes. It can only be used for public safety or transportation. This is just a history over the years that the county has been receiving this tax, how the county has decided, how the county board, it's totally within the county board's ability to decide how much gets allocated to each fund. And so historically, the county board has allocated most of this RTA transportation sales tax revenue to the transportation department. And a portion goes to the general fund. I'll just, notably the DuPage County allocates all of this RTA transportation sales tax revenue. They allocate it to public safety versus their transportation department. So it can be different from county to county, and that is totally up to the county board that's allocated. This is just the background on that RTA transportation sales tax and the legal language of how it could be allocated. More background on the local option motor fuel tax and how that is comparable to other counties. And there. So these are some of the funding options that we've talked about for the 2025 budget. As you know, we have wanted to not end up running our budget process like we did last year, where we're trying to balance the budget at the 11th hour. We're trying to solve that problem early on in the budget process. And so the instructions were given to all the elected officials and the departments that they can not budget no more than 3% increase over last year's expenses. And we're also limiting the number of vacant positions that are allowed. And that is, there's a scale depending upon how many employees are in each department. So the options to essentially fund the budget deficit would be to continue to use our fund balance and spend down our fund balance, raise property taxes, which if you raised property taxes at the 3.4% CPI, that would bring in about 1.9 million. Another option is to increase the local option motor fuel tax to 8 cents, which would bring in approximately $7.1 million. And then the related transaction that you would want to make then, if the transportation department were getting an additional $7 million, then you could take perhaps 25% more of the RTA transportation sales tax revenue that KDOT gets and take 6.2 million and move it to the general fund to help close that budget deficit. So those two transactions, increasing the local option motor fuel tax and then reallocating some of the RTA transportation sales tax, would go hand in hand. And these are recommendations that have probably been made to this board for probably four years going. And then the another option is to increase or put on a referendum for the voters a special county retailer's occupation tax. This is a tax that is available to counties all over the state. Probably about 45% of the counties have this tax. Some of our surrounding counties that have this tax are Kendall County, Winnebago County, Peoria has this tax. It is taxed. I've got the next.
And McHenry. And McHenry
now. And this tax is taxed in quarter percent increments. So it's 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, 1, 1.25, et cetera, et cetera. If the county were to put in a tax, and it can only be used for public safety, so it can be used for, which is the largest part of our budget, in our general fund it's probably about 75% of our budget anyway is public safety. If you put in at 1%, it would bring in about $60 million, and about 75 million of our general fund budget is public safety. And then I have Blair, just a couple more pie charts.
Oh, Kathy, before you go, just quickly, you go back to the next slide. If you can. There we go. Thank you. So if we do a property tax revenue, that's $2 million rounding up. And then if we increase our motor fuel tax to 8, so that is 7 million. But if we transfer that back to make KDOT whole, and we transfer then money back into the general fund, we're really net increase about 3 million. Is that correct?
No, I mean, if you increase the property tax revenue and moved about an additional 25% of the RTA sales tax to the general fund, you'd be moving about 8 million, roughly 8.2 million into the general fund, which still that is not, based on the current forecast and how we're operating, it still wouldn't be enough to completely close the gap, but
So we're still behind than $3 million, right? now.
essentially, yes.
Okay, with this current budget.
This is our 2025 budget that I'm talking about here. Yeah, I mean, our 2024 budget, we're digging into reserves right now. Because our 2023 budget, we used up reserves to pay expenses.
Mr. Sanchez.
Ms. Hopkinson, that under the special county retailers occupation tax for public safety, that's $60 million. That's almost kind of a scary number, and maybe from a taxpayer's perspective, but that represents a 1% tax implementation, correct?
Yes.
So maybe something at like 0.25%, that would be more around like 13 to 15 million roughly.
Conservatively, based on our the current sales revenue that we're getting, the Illinois Department of Revenue estimates, they're actually running a new estimate for us, but the last time they ran this estimate, it was somewhere between 15 and 17 million per 0.25%.
Okay.
Which would basically be enough to close a gap. But if expenses go up and you need money for capital, yeah.
Yeah, so 0.25% would kind of just bring us to baseline. Maybe 0.5% would get us ahead in a way to prepare for the future. Potentially.
Yeah, 0.25%. If you look back at this chart, we're essentially, if you're just doing a conservative increase of 3%, conservatively, and you're just moving $3 million into the capital projects fund, we're already short $18 million just for 1 year in 2028. So 0.25% would not be enough. Would not be enough.
And please remember, it's when we say 0.25%, 0.5%, that's on a dollar purchase of defined items that anybody who uses Kane County services, roads, security, whatever, would be paid for. So it's not just for Kane County residents. It's for anybody who comes into Kane County. And it would be, let's say, for a full percent, that'd be a penny on a dollar purchase, defined simply for public safety and restricted to public safety, which would include our courts, attorneys, jail, et cetera, in the corner.
Madam Chair, Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, Mr. Davis. Mr. Surges, please.
Good morning. I just wanted to, and thank you, Madam Chair. Just two comments that jump out at me that I just wanted to reiterate. Vern, you had mentioned about your presentation. I just wanted to also mention that at that same finance meeting, I had discussed the potential and what it might look like if we were to go back to the departments and offices and say, hey, listen, this is just all the revenue that we have coming in at this time. We are looking at cuts. And I don't believe that as a board, that's our position to say where those cuts are, but it is our position to advise the departments and offices where those cuts might be. And I just wanted to make sure that while we're trying to find that secret sauce recipe, that the other side of the coin, with all deference, that the other side of the coin is put out there at this meeting as well. And also one of the items that we have coming up in human services is the discussion of the external equity study. And when staff presented that to me and asked opinion, you know, my opinion was that I don't know how we can go to that when we haven't balanced the budget and we're spending, you know, beyond our means now. And I just wanted to, make sure everybody understands that, or it's at least part of the conversation, that we really need to move on to this expeditiously. And I know we have this committee structure where, start here, go through that. Yeah, but in the finance committee, I had asked Kathy, pretty specifically, if we had to work backwards from date certain on making things happen, what are our deadlines and where do those need to be? And I just wanted to make sure that I communicated that, I don't want to beat them to death. I just want to communicate them to this committee as they were repeated at finance committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, your turn.
There's there's a lot to unpack here. As you gave your example, it occurred to me that maybe a more realistic example might be somebody spending $100, because there's not a lot you can get for $1, but people coming into the county, and those are key words because it would apply to anybody that came to shop in the Commons or the Outlet Mall, and they spend $100, and we're going to ask them for either at 1/4%, you're going to ask them for a quarter, 25 cents to go along with their $100, or 50 cents, or up to $1 if you do a full 1%. So as you were giving your example, it occurred to me that maybe the example of $100 expenditure was a little more relevant. But as we go through all this, a lot of other items kind of pop out to me. We didn't get here. Well, Kathy pointed out, there's been no change in 14 years, I think you said, Kathy?
Yes, Kane County has not raised the property taxes except for starting in 2017, just on new construction only, but Kane County has not increased property taxes in 14 years.
Thank you.
If you actually look at the tax rate has gone down each year.
And those are popular budgets to vote for. They all had my vote. The problem is, and we're facing it now, is that we've been digging a hole. We turned our back on one of the few revenue streams that are available to county government. And this is the result of that. So how do you, if you don't increase revenue, then you have to decrease spending, and we the people have been in our ear plenty about that. But let's make that personal for a moment. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,300 people work for the county. Good, we the people kind of people, real people with kids that go to school and homes just like everybody else. And for us to cut means some of those, we the people, lose their job. So I just want to be realistic when we talk about these things, because it's so easy to say to us, well, just cut spending, try harder. I think we've been trying hard for many, many years, but we also turned our back on the idea that, the cost of doing all this was continuing to go up, but we froze the levee. So at some point, as a businessman, I don't like to increase my prices to my customers. I will do my best to sort of hold the line on that. But I learned a long time ago, if I didn't raise it at all in an effort to help them and waited for 4 years or more, then I was going to be confronted with having to raise it, a lot, what would feel like a really bitter pill to swallow. And if I had just done a little bit each year, it would have gone with no notice, or at least much less, pain. We've done the same thing. It's catching up to us now. So, I happen to think that the sales tax is a path forward that generates a great deal of revenue and spreads it out in a fairly painless way. And it includes people from outside of the county. You've heard me talk before about being very careful about reallocating RTA, because when you take the dollars away, especially if you don't do the motor fuel tax to balance it out, there's back end money that you lose out on grants and so forth. And Kathy knows that. She was at KDOT, so leave that to her to talk about more. That's it for my soapbox for a moment.
I have, if I may, no, I have one more soapbox just to throw out for your consideration. And think about this. We don't need to answer it probably until next week. If this were to be passed, the sales tax levy at whatever appropriate rate, obviously, I would think math would be at least 0.5% to a full percent. Would we need to increase property tax? Or could we
No.
keep it, could we keep it level for what it is right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But continue to take new growth. Never ignore the new growth.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of new growth in Kane County. We already know housing starts are starting to move forward, Mr. Davos. Yes, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question for now. Our base budget, is it based on actual expenditure from the previous year, or do we have a base that we just work from? And I should say another question is too also, how many accounts do we have where we carry them forward from the previous year, but the funds have not been spent in 2 years or more? I think that would be a good thing to present.
Yeah, we've talked about that in terms of what fund balances are available in some of our special revenue funds. Some of the largest fund balances that are out there are restricted. So the state motor fuel tax money, our local motor fuel tax money, the county highway levy, the county bridge levy, the county highway matching levy, the RTA sales tax that's allocated to KDOT, all of that is restricted money to KDOT. It can't be, you can't use state motor fuel tax money to pay sheriff salaries. You can't use local motor fuel tax money to pay adult probation officers. So there's a lot of restricted funds. There's a handful, and that goes along with that interest earned discussion that we had. You know, what interest earned is out there that we can move around from fund to fund. Probably the biggest source is the ARPA money, but the ARPA money is being spent down. There's probably less than 50 million. And in a couple of years, it will be zero because it has to be. We have to spend that money. So a lot of the funds that have fund balances, there are statutes and grant requirements that say those monies can only be spent on specific things.
I get that, but the ones that don't have the restrictions, that's the one. And also our base budget, are we doing actual expenditures from the previous year or?
So our actual expenses in the general fund for 2023 were about 114 million. But as you know, for 2024, we did the internal equity studies, which added several $1 million to our budget. So I would say 2024 is probably, we're not far off. We're probably going to spend pretty close to that for 2024.
Okay. Still, we can think about it. And if you have any other questions, Mr. Ford, maybe
I
you
thought
can.
about it.
No, prepare, and so that she can explicitly answer, well, what your concerns are, and we can share those at our meeting next week. Good questions. Ms. Bates?
Thank you, Mavis Bates. I believe that asking our department heads to cut spending reminds me of families who have to choose between buying medications or buying food or paying the electric bill or paying the rent. I think our department heads have cut budgets and squeezed their budgets for the last 15 years. And I don't think there's squeezing left to be done. So I don't think asking our department heads to cut the budgets more is going to be realistic or helpful.
Okay, very good. All right. Are there any other questions? Please, then go ahead.
I had just 3 more pie charts, which Blair has. And again, just wanted to remind everybody, next slide. Again, just focusing on the general fund, because the general fund is the fund that has the revenue shortfall. So just for the general fund, for the 2024 budget, about 41% of our general fund budget is other taxes. Other taxes would be sales tax revenue that we get from the state. It would include income tax revenue, the cannabis tax revenue, things like that. The property tax, the percent sign got cut off there. That's the pale blue. It's about a 25% of our general fund budget. And then there's a variety of different revenue sources. There are charges for services that some of our elected offices charge, various fees and things for the services that they provide. There's fines that a variety of King County offices assess. There's reimbursements, which are essentially reimbursing salaries. And most of that reimbursement is for our court services department. They receive a significant amount of reimbursement for their juvenile probation department. They receive that revenue from the state of Illinois. Our budget includes using up some of our fund balance utilization, and then transfers from other funds. Our IT department charges all of the other funds across the county for services, sort of like an internal service fund. And so what are the costs in the general fund? So about 35% of our general fund costs, this is total costs, salaries, contractual services, commodities. There really isn't capital in the general fund. It's essentially salaries and contractual services and commodities, things like electricity, utilities, IT services, et cetera. So 35% of our general fund is the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office has 3 components. It has the patrol officers, which are on the street. It has the adult corrections officers, which are inside the jail. And it has the court security personnel, which are at the courtrooms all across the county. The state's attorney's office, most of the state's attorney's staff is in the general fund. There are some that are in some of our other funds, but most of the state's attorney's staff is in our general fund. So that's 11% of our general fund costs. Court services, which is our adult probation officers, our juvenile probation officers, et cetera, is about 9% of the total costs in our general fund, but they are also receiving those salary reimbursements. Our buildings management department, which is all of the staff, and that also picks up all of the costs for electricity and natural gas and water, et cetera. That's about 9%. Our public defender's office is about 5%. The county clerk's office, which is elections and then all of your vitals, that's about 5%. The IT department, which is all of the, well, not all of the, because they have some of their costs and some of the other funds, but it's the software, the hardware costs, the staff that provide IT services to the entire county. Our judiciary and courts, our judges are paid by the state, but their staff is paid by the county. And so that is paid out of our general fund. The circuit clerk's office, which is the record keeper for our court system, they're about 3% of our general fund. We have some debt. We have about $3 million in debt service on a couple of existing bond issues that we have payments on for years to come yet. So that's a part of our general fund. The coroner's office, his staff is part of the general fund. The county board staff is part of the general fund. The finance department, which is finance, purchasing, and payroll. There's 12 of us, 3 in payroll, 3 in purchasing, and the rest in finance. The supervisor of assessments office is part of the general fund. And then smaller parts of the general fund are the environment department, the county auditor staff. I think the county auditor's budget is only not even $400,000. There's just a couple of people in that office. The Merit Commission, Emergency Management, and HR. So I think I have one more slide. So if you look at it a different way, 77% of our general fund expenses are for elected offices. So the elected offices are your sheriff, state's attorney, coroner, county clerk, et cetera. So those offices are the bulk of our general fund expenses using the general fund, general revenue. And then the rest are. So I think that's all I had for today.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions on any of this?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Kais.
Hi, Kathy. Excellent presentation. It takes me a couple times to go through to actually have a lot of it register. That's great. Thank you. In this particular slide, the building management is 9%. Does that include the management of the buildings that the elected officials and their staff occupy?
Right. So, I mean, we have our whole judicial campus out at 38 and Peck. So that whole campus, this campus here, the clerk of the circuit courts campus up on Randall Road, and then there's a variety of offices. But the staff is paid, and the cleaning services, et cetera, is all paid essentially out of the general fund. And then the electric bills, the gas bills, all of that, we roll up and assign that to the buildings management department. So it includes not just the staff, but all those facilities costs.
This is the 9%?
Yes.
Of all the staff to maintain all the buildings and the energy and the regular maintenance equipment and stuff. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You know, just this comment, for the 14 years that we've carefully held the line, we have asked the departments that we have control of to, you know, to watch their pennies. And I think the elected offices have done a lot of that too. I think we lose track of the fact that our Microsoft licenses are simply going to go up every year. There's no way that Bill Gates is not going to raise the prices on those licenses. We have our contracts with our employees that have built-in raises. So even though we're watching, you know, pennies on paper and staples and stuff like that, there are major leaps every year that we have absorbed. And it's just kind of amazing to me that we've been able to absorb that, but that is certainly why we're sitting here looking at this now.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just Sanchez here. Just in seeing this presentation now for the second time, it just stands out to me even more when we talk about cutting our expenses. There's kind of an 800-pound gorilla or elephant or whatever in the room, and that is that the majority of our expenses go towards the judiciary. All elected officials, all very important and vital mandated services. So I appreciate Mr. Sturgis's concept of us, you know, going to department heads and elected officials and saying, hey, here's the money we have to spend. How can we cut your budget down enough to meet that? But also, you know, I'd like to extend a sort of friendly challenge to all my colleagues here. What is a real practical way to do that when we're talking about the judicial budgets? Because just asking them to reduce, you know, maybe by 10%, I don't know how that conversation goes. I wouldn't even know how to start that conversation, and I wouldn't want to leave it all up to Ms. Molina to be responsible for doing that either. So I'd really like to see if there are any ideas. I know the Finance Committee is looking for any ideas from this body of how we can actually approach that kind of a conversation. Can we even get to enough budget cuts to close the budget gap? Some would say that it's just not possible. Obviously, we need to make some effort in that direction, but I'm just looking for practical considerations rather than theoretical. So I'll just leave that for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Surtis, this will be your last question, if you wouldn't mind, for this topic.
Not a problem. I just want to remind, and Jared, thank you for reaching out on that. The conversation or the question at finance was more based on when would we have that conversation? When is it appropriate to have that? And I don't want to leave that that box unchecked. But if we're going to do it, I believe my statement was, we don't want to wait until the 11th hour like we've done in the past. If we're going to do that and there are some cuts available, then we should be addressing those now, not waiting to point uncertain. And I agree with Jared. It's, you know, we just want to be as fair and reasonable as we can on that, but leave no stone unturned.
All right, and I'll finish up with, since we're talking about the public safety group, that we had a large unfunded mandate that came through the state last year, Safety Act. I think we're all very familiar with that. We went through a lot of conversations about that. Our state's attorney has brought forward a lot of data for us, showing that there has been an increase of domestic violence, of child abuse, of pornography, something that we all are just turns our stomach when we hear. And all the documentation needs to be done for people coming in to our courts. And we have led the way in best practices for that. That's something the state of Illinois is very proud of King County for. And we should stand very proud that King County has achieved that. But that caused dramatic increase in costs, personnel costs to maintain that, as well as technical costs to maintain that. That is something that has been put upon us, and which is one of the reasons we have seen an increase in our base of compensation. So we have to forget that it's not just what we do internally. Sometimes external pressures force that to happen, and we react with what we feel is not to cut the corners, but to do the best job we can for the safety and security of our residents here in King County. So please don't forget that as well as we go through this. Okay, Kathy, thank you. Well done. Okay, Ms. Mann.
Thank you. I'll be brief. We had two big newsletters on King County Connects with 50% open rate. One was for the election results with almost 3,000 people clicking on the clerk's office through the newsletter. And then we had a big one for the senior citizen property tax exemption. Thank you to Mark Armstrong for helping me put that together. I find it fun when we get a share on Facebook, and this one was from a real estate group that shared the King County Connects senior tax exemption. So we thank them. Our outreach continues. The King County Government Blood Drive had 11 donors short of what the Red Cross needed, but we had to move the location at the last minute. So I'm going to thank Geneva Township for hosting that for us. Illinois Tollway reached out to Madam Chair. So we're going to be hosting an iPass Day on May 3rd here at the Government Center. I'm giving a seminar in Elgin on Friday regarding media and public information. We're in the process of planning some events with KDOT and the fabulous Fox Water River Trail, so stay tuned for that. Helping with the launch of the opioid campaign that the King County Health Department has been working on, which is very impressive and thoughtful. We do have a new website designed for our homepage. If you've noticed, we worked on it with IT, cleaned it up a little bit, put some things in different locations, made it a little bit easier for people. So feedback on that is welcomed. And just public information, we did lower the flags outside the government building in memory of the DeKalb Sheriff's deputy who was killed last Thursday. And then the eclipse is April 8th, and that starts in our area around 12:50. We're expecting 30% chance of rain and partly cloudy skies. And that's it. I'll answer any questions.
Can you do something about that?
On that. Make sure everybody, if you want to look up, get some glasses. Get your special glasses so you don't hurt your eyes. And from what I heard on the radio is that pets don't care about the sun to look up at the sun. So they'll all be fine. So if you want to take your dog out with you, feel free. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Julie? No? All right. So let's go on to, is there any old business? None? Any new business? None? So let's go on to our consent agenda. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you, you have 3 resolutions from the American Rescue Plan Committee. I will move all 3 and ask for a second.
Bates seconds.
Be placed on consent agenda. The first resolution is for the Pre-Arrest Diversion and Equity Flexible Participant Fund project for Kane County State's Attorney. The second resolution is authorizing transfer of funds from lost revenue recoupment 356 to General Fund 01 to fund the Pre-Arrest Diversion and Equity Operations Fund. And then the third is for reimbursement of finance staff pay and benefits for hours worked on ARPA administration tasks. I'll take any questions on these, but I can say on the third one, Finance Department has always been integral in the American Rescue Plan program here at Kane County. That has become even more the case as we've gotten deeper into our programming and the amount of work required for reporting and also just knowing what is going on with our finances. So I do see, as chairman of the committee, I do see this as a very reasonable request considering the heavy load that they are helping to carry for the county in regards to this program and amongst all of the other duties that they do. So I'll take any questions on these if there are any.
Any questions? No? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Davis.
Davis, yes.
Davis, thank you. Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Okay. Mr. Tebby?
The executive committee has one resolution acknowledging the annual review of number of procurement cards issued to the county board office and each of their transaction limits. There is one card in the name of Corinne Pirog with a single purchase limit of $1,000 and a credit limit of $10,000. I move for the passage of this resolution.
Second?
Second, and I believe there's no,
voice vote.
we can do a voice vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, any opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you. Mr. Berman?
Madam Chair, Finance has 12 resolutions, 1 to 12. I've moved for approval of those.
Gums will
And
second.
the hold off on the ordinance to discuss residence requirements. So we have a motion to approve or second? Okay,
I got a second.
all right. I will read each of those resolutions. First is a approving February 2024 claims paid of $9,311,139.80. 2 is a resolution authorizing amendment to the agreement with Healy, Bender, Patton, and Bean and R.C. Wegman for the construction of accessible ramp at the Kane County Sheriff's Office, RFQ number 42-020, $31,795. 3 is a resolution authorizing service agreement with Facility Soft Survey LLC, FSI, for the Building Management Department work order software, $18,422. 4 is a resolution authorizing a contract with the Langton Group for the Mill Creek SSA Landscape Maintenance Service Program, tree-related services, bid number 24-025-TK of $160,000. 5 is a resolution authorizing the contract with Everlast Blacktop Incorporated for the North Sidewalk Improvement Project for the Mill Creek SSA, bid number 24-024-KK, $900,000. 6 is a resolution authorizing the contract extension with NetSeed and Heartland Business Systems for Cisco hardware software services and SmartNet RFP number 34-020 for $800,000. 7 is a resolution authorizing updated capital projects for the capital fund, $11,604,572. 8 is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for the commercial floor coverings and related services with Mohawk Industries, through Omnia Partners Contract Number 20200022149 of $200,000. 9, a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds with Zoom Video Communications Incorporated for Zoom web conferencing services for Kane County Information Technology Department, $43,275. 10 is a resolution authorizing Health Department purchase of mosquito larvicide, $44,035. 11 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 vehicles for the state's attorney's office, $109,698.09. And 12 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of an armored vehicle for the sheriff's office, $465,929. The extent of our 1 through 12.
Okay, are there any questions on any of these items? Yes.
I just have, and this is not to pull it off or anything, but I know there was a question earlier about the capital budget and the 5-year planning. I know that as chairman of the admin committee, when I first got on, and prior to that, when Ms. Allen was chair, we know that we've had a significant delayed maintenance program that dealt with which resulted in a number of failings for equipment. And so we devised Roger Fonstock worked with us to devise a 5-year plan to remedy that. And I know that the question was asked if that hadn't been followed up or where it began. It began some time ago. I couldn't track it back to, but if you'll look on the capital plan, today's budget, page 220 of today is an update of that plan. And the list, the projects that are on that was also passed at finance. And it's on page 467 of that document on the agenda of this last week. And then page 107 of admin, which was last month. So just if you have questions about that, you can track that back to what is on the capital funds project.
All needed and necessary projects. Thank you for that comment. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, Surges,
Yes, Mr. Surges.
on the item for the armored vehicle for the sheriff. If Kathy Hopkinson is still in the room, I thought last at the finance committee, we had discussed adding some language that said if that was reimbursable via ARPA, that we would be interested in doing that. I'm not sure, I don't recall personally how we reconciled that, but I don't want that to slip off the plate. That if that is something that can be reimbursed, that we added that into here to make sure that we can look at it.
This is Sanchez. It is in the resolution as it's currently on the agenda.
You are perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for recognizing that.
That would require a roll call.
All right, so we have a roll call vote right now. There's no further questions.
Madam Chair, one further on that.
Yes.
Are we addressing item 13 separately?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are.
Yes, sir.
Thank
So
you.
these are for items only 1 through 12.
Perfect. Thank you.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Herman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Yes.
excuse me, Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Okay, very good. All right. Yes, sir.
All right, item 13 is an ordinance creating Illinois residency requirements for the county employees. I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Surges seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Surges.
Discussion.
Okay, discussion. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Alan, I would like to offer an amendment to this. If you will, it's page 283 of our package. And it's the grandfather exemption, which is the last paragraph on that page. And it's an easy change that I'm offering. It says exemption grandfather clause, employees for whom out-of-state employment has been granted will be exempted under this policy. That's the change I am proposing. I would look for a second so we could discuss.
Bates second.
Slater second.
Well, you have enthusiastic seconds.
238
238.
of the package, yeah. Knowing Blair, he's pulled it up. Yes. Thank you. If this is Alan, and here's what I wanted to get into. There is so much work that is accomplished around here that I don't think we can all keep track of all of it. So I wanted to toss into the mix that one of our ongoing projects is the Community Development Committee. I've sat on it for many years and I've been chairman twice, including right now. And what happens with that committee is we get about $3 million every year of federal money coming into us. And we get to use that for projects around the county. And the committee makes recommendations to executive and to full county board on how to spend that money. And it's one of those rare instances like farmland protection, where the federal government says, we're going to trust that this money will be better spent if it's spent close to home. And so that's why we have the opportunity. And we have over the years put that money into streets and sidewalks and roads and some parks and some water system upgrades around the county. Now, certainly we need staff to work through those applications. And I'm speaking to this this exemption because the staff for all the work on these projects is one of the employees who would be grandfathered. And that person has the responsibility for spending federal money and also the responsibility for many years of seeing where we have spent that money and how we can best use it in the future in order to give all of us the guidance we need to make good decisions. I think that is a very unique person with a very special skill set. And I would like us to be able to keep that person as long as possible. I believe that the reason that he moved was that his wife was offered a dream job. And so it was agreed that he could work remotely on all of these responsibilities, but there were rules. And one of the rules was that it had to be as good for the county as it was for the employee. And another of the rules was that if the employee needed to come in for meetings regularly, he would pay for that travel and the expense of that himself. And because there were going to be those problems with out-of-state taxes, the director involved found an accounting firm in Springfield who knows how to handle that. So the out-of-state taxes, the workman's comp taxes, the unemployment insurance taxes were all handled by this outside accounting firm so that our finance people didn't need to do that. And the expense for that service is handled internally so that it's not our taxpayers who are paying for that service. So with those rules in mind and the value of this employee, I feel like I can speak to this grandfather clause and say that I think that that person, we should keep that person as long as we can. And I'm hoping some others here will be able to speak to the other employees that are involved, but at least I could speak to this one. And I'm sure there will be additional questions, and I'm going to make a guess that the director involved here, the executive director involved here is Scott Berger. And so we can bring him on to also address this, answer these questions for us. So thanks for letting me talk to this.
Um, I have a question. I don't see anybody hands up. You mentioned that the cost for the accounting service in Springfield is not costing the taxpayers any dollars. So I would assume you're talking about local Kane County tax dollars. Is that being paid out of the federal grant, out of the money that is coming through for the federal grant?
And I believe that's correct. But let me defer to someone who knows more.
All right. Mr. Berger, you are, I see you online. Could you please comment on that?
Yes, Ms. Allen is referring to the cost that we incurred and my office covered to get ourselves set up in the out-of-state systems and recognized as an employer in that state. And yes, we did cover that cost out of our budget. And our budget includes no general fund dollars, as she indicated.
All right. Okay, very good. Ms. Hopkinson, I see you wanting to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the finance department, every payroll, we do have to do separate procedures outside our normal procedures for all the out-of-state employees. We have to pay payroll taxes separately to those states. We don't follow our normal procedures like for all the other county employees. So our payroll department has to do extra steps every payroll for the out-of-state employees.
And do we, Kathy, hold on. Do you have an estimated cost on that?
I mean, it's probably a portion of an hour every payroll that she has to process transactions separately. She has to go on a separate website for each state to pay those taxes because it's not part of our normal setup.
So is that we have 5 employees from what my understanding is that are currently working out of state?
Yeah, I know that we have an employee in Minnesota. We have an employee in California. We have a couple of employees and I believe the rest are in Wisconsin.
Is that a quarter of an hour per employee or altogether?
I would say probably, let's call it 15 minutes every payroll. Because she has to go on to each website to pay those taxes.
So that's just to confirm, for all 5 employees, it's 15 minutes.
That would be a guess.
Okay.
But I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted this policy is that you like to keep things routine. Because anytime there's something that's non-routine, you're adding extra steps and there's an extra risk involved because you're having to process something that is not part of the normal situation.
Ms. Labrillo, thank you. I see you want to come up to speak as well.
I just wanted to add to, as this was discussed in human services, the expenses associated with out-of-state employment do go well beyond the cost of the payroll. We do have to purchase a separate insurance policy for the workman's compensation insurance there. Although the premium is paid by Scott's department, it's still work for our department to get that. Should there actually be a claim, there would be an additional process that would be involved. We would not be able to use our normal process, which is specific to Illinois. Our attorney is a licensed Illinois attorney. So should there be a claim, there would be additional information on that. But above all of these other expenses as they go through, there is a compliance expense and a risk associated with having out-of-state employees. We are bound by the employment laws of any state that we have an employee working in that state, which means we do have to go through the compliance process. Essentially, to be fully compliant, we would need a full handbook that is compliant with the laws of those states. That's something we don't have. So we open ourselves up to increased risk of employment issues.
Yes, Mr. Ford, and then Ms. Gomes.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. We already have issues with hiring with employees. So you telling me we want to add to that? I've been through this before with Aurora and also Downers Grove. And usually the grandfather in is what you stick to because it just makes life easier. We should create an issue that we don't have to create. I don't get why we don't make this simple for us instead of trying to create something in the very near future that it could be a great big problem.
So just for clarification for me.
We don't need to start trying to find a way to get rid of employees,
So,
period.
so what you're suggesting is keep the existing employees on this.
Keep what was suggested, grandfathered in.
Okay, all right. Yes, Ms.
Thank you,
Gums.
Madam Chair Gums. So, thank you, Ms. Allen, for your thoughts on this. So I've been back and forth on this issue a little bit, and I think a conversation should be had. I fundamentally, when it comes to the grandfather thing, agree with your amendment. I don't think that we should eliminate any employee that's doing good work for us. And although I appreciate and respect the work of our HR department and our finance department, there's thousands of companies that have acclimated to this change. We also need to acclimate to that because the workforce environment has changed over the last 3 years, and we need to change with it. So when I say that out loud, my thought process is we have so many vacancies throughout this county that we're struggling to fill at a rate that's simply low. So people aren't taking the job because it's too low. So food for thought here is if we can, and sorry, Alabama, but I'm going to use you as an example. The cost of living in Alabama is not the same as the cost of living in Illinois. So if we find a qualified individual that can work remotely, and the job obviously would have to be a remote only job, they may in fact take the job. So I just feel like limiting our workforce pool is a really bad decision overall. And I think that we need to figure out how to acclimate to that change. I understand the obstacles and the hurdles there, but that's not something I mean, we have smart and intelligent individuals. I think we can overcome that. And in the long run, I think it would be better, we would be better off for it. And that's my 2 cents, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Caius.
Caius, just to clarify that, there's 5 individuals. Once those individuals, if we were to grandfather them in, as your amendment suggests, as they pass, they would not be replaced without a stay. This would be a self limiting
Sunsetting.
yeah. So it wouldn't go on forever, no matter what. So.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Molina?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question regarding those 5 current employees. Are they all employed through the county board, or are they employed through elected officials as well?
I would ask Jamie to come up, Ms. Librella.
There are some of each. So a few of those counties are employed through the county board departments, and a few of them are employed through elected offices. I believe 3 are county board and 2 are elected offices, or vice versa. It's a fairly even split.
So the other thing to take in consideration is that we wouldn't have any oversight over how our elected officials decide to employ their employees. So if they keep them on, it really only has bearing over 3 employees. So I'm in agreement with this amendment. I think it's kind of a compromise for now. Allow those employees to continue working at the county and then kind of go back and revise this if we do have any further workforce problems and we need to look outside of our state for employees. So thank you, Ms. Allen.
Yes, Ms. Bates?
I agree with this amendment, and I think that as the world turns, more and more expertise is going to be found outside of the state of Illinois that we need. And so I will also agree with Ms. Molina that this, I feel like, is a compromise, and that in the future, there may be technological advances. I feel sorry for finance department that they are doing this by hand. That seems like archaic and error prone. But if there are ways that this can be streamlined in the future, I think we need to consider letting people live where they want to live if they're doing a good job for Kane County.
Yes, Mr. Berman?
Berman here. HR has said that it puts the county at risk. I wonder what that risk really is. What does that mean to us? We're saying that we would take, we want those employees, but at what risk? And I don't know what that risk is. You're saying there's a risk, but what is that risk in dollars and cents and
That's
whatever?
could, if Mr. Berman, I mean, Mr. Kenyon, I see you, but let's answer that question. Could you answer that question, Jamie?
So that's going to depend on, what would happen. The risk could be because our sick leave policy doesn't comply with Minnesota law. And if that employee were to bring suit against us, we would be in violation or potentially fines for laws that exist in Minnesota that we are not aware of or that change. So it would depend on what it is. That's a larger question. I'm not sure I can answer specifically as to what that cost would be. And just to answer a couple of other things that have come up, we certainly can, as a county, the board can decide to become a multi-state employer, and we can adapt to that as many private companies could. However, we would need more staff and would have expenses associated with doing that. So that's something the board can absolutely choose to do. This is to maintain our current staffing level. We cannot accommodate it under our current staffing model. So that is why we had brought it up. So we gave a very, had a very detailed presentation that answered a lot of these questions that was given in Human Services Committee. Additionally, the original draft did what Ms. Allen is presenting, the original draft had that in it, and the committee specifically changed it to what you see before you today, following a lengthy presentation. So the original draft did include a grandfather clause to exempt the current employees, and the committee, after discussion, did choose to amend to what you have here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Make sure everybody turns off their phone, please.
Back and forth.
Madam Chair, Surges, when you have the opportunity.
Yes, Mr. Sturge, Mr. Kenyon, it has a comment to make, and then I'll recognize you, sir.
Mike Kenyon, with every special step we have to take, we run the risk of making a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be awful if there was a mistake and an out-of-state employee sued us because of some little silly insurance thing? With 515,000 people in this county, we can't find 5 jobs, fill it with people that live here and pay taxes here? I'm a simple guy. It's just, you ought to be able to do that.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that. Mr. Sturgis?
Madam Chair, thank you so much. I want to, this will be lengthy, but first I want to thank Deb for her text message last night. She was ever so polite as she said, I'm not going to torpedo your motion, but I'm going to punch you right in the nose and we're going to fight about this a little bit. And Deb, thank you so very, very much. That was very cordial. You know what? I have heard literally all sides of this. But some of the highlights have been, there are board members that have come and said, listen, we compare ourselves to all these other counties time and time again, yet when it comes right down to it, we only want to do the things that are convenient for us. Meaning, most of the other counties do not allow out-of-state people to be working here. My argument to that was, what if you were a county that bordered Indiana or bordered Wisconsin and your employees work in both areas? How do you handle that? The concept here was to try and say, we don't want the floodgates open to all these other employees coming here. All these departments and offices asking for employees from out of state. We're not equipped to handle that. And I agree with Mr. Kenyon saying, you know what? It's just, we're one lawsuit away for this costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars. But so we went to outside research and we said, ADP, would you do this for us? They said no. We went internally and looked at it. They said no. Okay, Chief Judge called right away and said, Cliff, what do you want me to do when I have a split situation and one member of a household gets a job in California, but my attorney who has 180 case files that's going to take the next 3 years to process. And I said, boy, we get that. Why don't we introduce a grandfather notion to this? by all means, we are not trying to threaten any employee that's here, but I am looking to this board to say, some of you are saying this, some of you are saying that, and we really just need to build this into a policy decision that says, are you kidding? Out of the entire state of Illinois, we can't find people to do the jobs that we have. And you know, you just need to take this to a vote because, you know, even now I'm hearing people vacillate that said, oh yes, we'll keep them for 36 months. Now it's, we'll keep them forever. And originally it was, we didn't want to keep them at all. And we're just like, nobody's supposed to be threatened with this. We just need a policy that says, hey, listen, going in the future, it would be our choice for a bunch of reasons that are more about compliance and following rules than trying to, you know, solve this for any one individual in any one specific situation. And I'm certainly not advocating one way or the other, but I am telling you that both finance and human services have strongly come forward and said, we are at jeopardy and we just need rules to follow. It's not our jobs to make the rule. It's your jobs as a board. It's your job as a board. And all I'm asking this body to do is, you know, let's just come up with that so our employees, our staff know exactly how to handle that. And Ms. Molina, I do, you know what? I will shout this from the mountaintop for the 9 millionth time. At some point, we're going to have to come up with this identification between elected officials, elected offices that have internal control versus board controlled departments. And you're right, what we set in motion on this doesn't mean that they can't, and we're not trying to control them. But I do believe that we have to put an indicator out there that says, this is our intent and this is our most reasonable attempt to do what's right. And if something falls on the outside of that, well, at least we can come back and say, this was our board's policy. Elected official, you chose to swim against that. And I hope that some point in the future, if an elected office with internal control makes that it's their office that's paying that, not the general fund of the county or the insurance liability fund of the entire county. If the office chose not to follow the county's best practices. So I just wanted to throw that out there and you know, I'll support a grandfathering of whoever's here. You know, if that's the way the board wants, but I'm way more comfortable saying, let's take the 36 months to 48 months and give it a reasonable amount of time. We can always revisit it later, but the intent is whatever we decide. So thank you.
Would you like to amend the amendment from 36 to 48?
You know what? I won't do that. If Debbie put this forward and she feels that there's a special employee someplace that needs to be handled appropriately, I will let Debbie modify that. But my suggestion is that we absolutely not leave that open-ended from a liability perspective, that we be able to put our best foot forward and say, we understood the situation. We thought we acted in a fair and equitable manner. And I don't believe that leaving it open-ended, we can, you know, let's give it 48 months. You want to go 5 years, go 5 years. But I think we need to put a perspective that we can always revisit later. But
yes.
You know, but you understand what I'm trying to say that as politely as I can. We need to protect ourselves from ourselves. And I think that that's the right way to do it without the employee feel threatened. And then that also gives us a leg to stand on going into the future of saying, yep, we really just don't want to do that unless there's some, you know, unbelievably unprecedented situation. But let's look at that when it happens. Don't make it a problem until it's a problem. So.
Okay, so Mr. Tepe, and then I think we've.
Madam Chair.
Hold on, please. Oh, Mr. Linder would like to talk, but I'll recognize Mr. Tepe right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be very long. I agree with Mr. Kenyon. I will be voting no against this amendment. I believe it's inappropriate for us to continue to put complexities upon the staff and at the same time tell them we need to reduce personnel because we have budget restrictions. Let's do everything we can, not only to comply with the fact that we want residents here that work for us, and that we want to make life as straightforward for our staff as we can.
Okay, thank you. If I may, Ms. Gomes, Mr. Linder has not yet spoken. Mr. Linder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question that the chair might address to Ms. Labrillo. And that is the 5 employees that are currently out of state. Are any of them part of one of the collective bargaining or labor or contracts?
None of them are part of collective bargaining agreements. They are all non-union staff.
Okay, that's good. This is a change in working conditions, and any of the unions could, even though they don't have a member affected, they could challenge that, but it's doubtful that they would.
Okay, are you completed, Mr. Linder?
Yep, that's it. I'd had a lot more to say if we had a union member in that 5, but we don't. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Gomes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a parliamentary inquiry for a pause here. Our legislative update is needing to leave in 15 minutes. I would wonder if we could postpone this discussion and move them up so they can get their legislative report through. So
Can
they
we
can
just
get back
call
to
this
work.
vote and then move on with?
Yes, I think we're almost done with this conversation. I think we're pretty close. So I'd like to put that on pause and let's complete this and then we'll go to legislative. Yes.
This is hopefully really quick. This is Caius. We also, in favor of this one, would be that the IT department has a lead developer, which wouldn't be accounted for in this 36-month. Or there's some nebulous thing like if we don't pass it right now, we can fix it later. Thing. This doesn't, either we can fix it no matter what, anytime, right? But keep in mind that we have a lead developer who's vital to our IT department that we would also be putting into this one.
So, all right, so that's part of the 5?
Part of the 5.
Part of the 5. Okay, so we know. All right, so we have a.
Can we call the question?
We're going to be, yes, thank you, Ms. Gomes, we are, but I just want to go back so we can refer back to what the amendment specifically is. Could you read that for us, please?
We have employees for whom out-of-state employment has granted and established prior to the effective date of this ordinance are exempt from the positions of this section.
All right, so let's take the vote on the amendment.
Allen?
And this is on the amendment.
On the amendment, yes, ma'am.
Allen, aye.
Bates?
Bates, yes.
Berman? Davist?
I'm sorry, so the amendment does not include a sunset of 36 months?
Correct.
It's just open-ended?
Yes.
Davis, no.
Ford? Gums?
Gums, yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Kenyon?
No.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Surges?
No.
Tepe, no.
Passes 10-5.
All right, so we have a vote on the, I think I can call the question now, on the amended resolution.
Unless there's more discussion on.
Unless, is there any other discussion? I think we've had quite a ample amount of discussion on this. So we've been, pending your vote to move this forward, we'll go to the full board. So clerk, please call the roll.
Allen?
Allen, aye.
Bates?
Bates, yes.
Berman? Davist?
Davis, yes.
Ford? Gums?
Gums, yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Sanchez?
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Surges?
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Debbie, no.
Tepe, no. Mr. Tepe, was that a no?
That's correct.
And passes.
Okay, passes. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Surges.
just, we will be doing a little bit of research on this and possibly bringing an amendment back with some additional information to the county board. And I'll be removing it from the consent agenda. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, I look forward to hearing, seeing your research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Scott Berger. I have one remark, very brief remark I'd like to make.
Yes, Mr. Berger, of course.
If I could just say that if there are responsibilities that are shouldered by another department currently that my office can cover, I am happy to explore that and relieve any sort of burden that falls to a different department. And I'd be happy to work with those other departments to discuss that.
Very kind of you.
Oh, very nice. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so now I'd like to, obviously, we have Ms. Gomes is waving her hand because she's got her lobbyists, the lobbyists, I believe, are online waiting to speak. So with your permission, I'd like to pause this. We're going to do a slight change on the agenda so that our lobbyists can present with this. I don't think we need to take a vote. I think we can just recognize that need. We're going to put a pause. We'll go back to Human Services in a little bit.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So to be our lobbyist update or our legislative update 14B, and I believe they are online. So the floor is yours.
That's not a lobbyist.
That's not definitely not a lobbyist. Hi, Cliff.
Cliff, you're online.
There you
Here
go.
you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, thank you for making time for me to join today. I'll be very brief.
I'm sorry, Greg, could you officially give your name?
Yes, my name is Greg Bales with McGuire Woods Consulting. The quick update, and my colleagues Louis Moses and James Sherwood are in Springfield today, both knee-deep in committee work, so they couldn't join. So I'll start quickly with a federal update. The House and Senate have been on recess the past 2 weeks, and they're returning to Washington next week. Potential items that are going to come up in Congress as we inch closer to the election this year could be things like legislation dealing with TikTok, which passed out of the House, a foreign aid package for Ukraine and other allies, railroad safety legislation. Those are some of the things that are being batted around. I'd say most important and topical for Kane County and is what's going on with the appropriations process. The first big news is, since we last spoke, is that the fiscal year 24 appropriation bills passed in March. Sort of a lesson, a civic lesson. There's 12 appropriation bills that fund various parts of the government. What Congress did was they ended up bundling them into two, what they call mini buses, 6 and 6. Most important for Kane County was the Commerce, Justice, and Science appropriations package, which included nearly $1 million for the Kane County Coroner's Office for the establishment of a forensics lab, which is a partnership with the state's attorney and sheriff's office. It's a big deal. We want to thank Congressman Bill Foster, who we worked with closely to ensure this funding passed through the process. And while initially the request was made and approved for $3 million, as negotiations went through Congress, the Appropriations Committee ultimately reduced this project and many, many others down a bit. And I want to just make clear that is not because of Congressman Bill Foster. That is at the behest of the Republican leadership in the Appropriations Committee. But we're still excited for the $1 million. What we're doing is now gearing up for fiscal year 25 appropriations process. That is moving forward quickly. It's always a hurry up and wait process. Our two senators have opened up their selection process. The House members are still waiting for guidance from the Appropriations Committee, but we've been working closely with various agencies and leaders in the county to get projects submitted. Most of those are done now so far for the Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth, and we'll be ready when the House portals open up. I think we have a nice, robust list of projects and appreciate the staff and everyone else's help who've been working on these. It's always a bit of a sprint, even when you try your best to plan for them. So that's some of the big federal news. The Springfield stuff, I'll just kind of gloss over. They're just knee deep in sort of a shortened session this year. The big ticket item we've been focused on for the county is a fiber leasing and licensing bill. So the existing fiber and broadband that the county has can be legally licensed and leased out. Senator DeWitt has been our champion for this in the Senate, Senate Bill 3173. We were able to negotiate an agreement with the Illinois Cable Association and other stakeholders. It passed out of committee the other week. We are teed up for what is known as third reading in the Senate with a deadline at the Friday of next week. We're optimistic we'll be moving that forward. State Representative Anna Mueller has pre-filed to carry the bill over in the House. We have a Republican co-sponsor joining her there as well. They have some different deadlines to move things on the House side, but we're cautiously optimistic that we've got the support we need to keep that bill trucking forward, which will be important for the county to recoup revenue for this existing infrastructure. Other than that, we will continue to push for the county's priorities, and we've been flagging a few grant opportunities here and there and have some various miscellaneous projects we're working with one-off with folks at the county, but full steam ahead and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bales?
Madam Chair Surges.
Yes, Mr. Surges.
Greg, I just wanted to say thank you for some of the proposals from our communities that we've been able to pass along to you, and for you giving any consideration to that whatsoever. I'm just wondering what influence you might have with this weather, because snow in April, we've just about had it. And
my wife's birthday is coming up, and she always reminds me that it snows around her birthday in April. And so
Indeed it is. This is normal weather.
yeah,
This is what we're supposed to have. So like it.
it's ruining early baseball, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes,
I
yes.
just want to make one comment. I appreciate the team. I know they're working directly with our other electeds and our department directors to get these projects up and going, and they've been very patient with the legislative committee. But I want to just comment on the fact that we had some discussion about why we have lobbyists, and as you know, they've brought quite a bit of money, but they also can stop bills that are horrible for King County, and they can get bills that are really good for King County. So this broadband is, I don't know if Roger's around, but I think it's like $800,000 or some crazy amount of money that's coming to us, and that couldn't be done without the support of our consultants as easily. So I just wanted to address that earlier comment, and I want to thank the team. So let everybody know they're doing a good job. Thanks.
Okay, okay. Thank you for those comments. Anybody else have any questions for the lobbyist? No? All right, Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you all.
All right, let's go back. We all ready? Sure. Okay, Mr. Surges. Oh, Mr. Kenyon, yes, sir.
If we get that $1 million, the investment of $10,000 for the lobbyist is a pretty big return. Even at a year, it's a pretty big return.
Yes, getting money is always
They
good.
can do things we can't do. Remember that.
I think you'd be charming downstate. I think you'd be a
Here, Surges is going to be our charming lobbyist.
No, thank you.
Mr. Surges has other goals and aspirations. All right, Mr. Surges, and one of them is to present the Human Services agenda.
We are at the request of the auditor's office. We are presenting a housekeeping item, resolution amending the resolution 23-518, approving the Kane County per diem real meal rates for the calendar year 2024. Do I have a second?
Is there a second?
Sanchez
Second.
seconds.
Okay, very good. And what is it now? We have for breakfast is 14, lunch is 16, and dinner is $34. Okay. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. So just as an allocation or a note, I was flying recently, and I bought a box of eggs. It's 2 Starbucks of large coffee, and a box of eggs, breakfast kind of thing. It was over $18. And that was here at the airport. So, and on the way back, I bought just a cup of coffee, large coffee, and that was $8. And that was in Alabama. Just so if you buy breakfast at the airport, we may have to go over this. You may have to combine it with lunch. Bring a snack with you. So
So it's actually not changing the dollar amounts. We're changing the terminology of it from per diem to daily maximum allowance. I don't have the resolution in front of me, but it's not changing the dollar amounts. We already determined those back in October or November. It's only changing the terminology.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any questions on this? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford. He's gone. Gums,
No.
Caius,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Passes with 1 no.
Okay. All right, Mr. Davost.
Oh,
No, judicial public safety. There we go. My apologies. Okay, here we go. Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judicial and Public Safety Committee met on March 14th, and we have 2 resolutions. I'd like to move both of them.
Gums second.
The first one is a resolution proclaiming April 14th to April 20th, 2024 National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And the second is recognizing April as National Volunteer Appreciation Month.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any discussion on these 2 items? Yes.
I just want to thank Ms. Molina for bringing us an Appreciation Month resolution and the right timeline. We seem to always end up being a little behind, so we're getting ahead of this one.
Staff, and I'm requesting that these be placed on our presentation. I think we're going to have some visitors
Absolutely.
to be able to thank them for coming.
Okay. It's done. Thank you. All right. Hearing that, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford. Gums,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges. Mr. Surges. Pepe.
Steffi, yes.
Passes.
Okay. Mr. Davis, your turn.
Okay, Davis Chair from the Plains Trains and Automobiles Club or Transportation Committee. We have 11 items for you. First one is, I'll move all 11 and ask for a second and then read them to you.
Second.
Who's second?
Linder, did you?
Linder.
Okay, first up is our Adopt a Highway applicants, new and renewal. I don't have the list right here in front of me, but the program continues on very effectively. Number 2 is the purchase of 3 V-body and equipment packages and the installation of all those for some tandem axle trucks. Number 3 is an agreement with Napa for buying parts. And if you look just a little further in there, you'll see that we get a really nice discount on things. So that's another good one. Number 4, planning ahead, we're going to put a modest deposit down on 6 tandem axle truck cabs and chassis for in the future. Considering some of the difficulties we've had in the past, I think that's a sound move. Number 5, contract with Builders Paving. That's to make the roads nice here in Kane County with the resurfacing project. Number 6, number 6 is contract with Plody Construction, who we all know, and this one stands out because section C2B of the Long Meadow Parkway is the final section. So Yay. Big, big step. Number 7, the same company, Plody, will be doing work for us at Fabian Parkway and Western Avenue for multi-use path reconstruction. Number 8, 8 and 9 are both builders paving with township maintenance projects, Dundee Township and Elgin Township. Number 10 is an amendment to the agreement with the Chorba Group. This is due to lack of on-staff engineers. We have on-call engineering services. And number 11 is an agreement with the State Materials Engineering firm to do testing for us and on-call material testing services. That's what we've got.
All right, very good. Are there any questions on any of this? Except the cheer for almost having Long Meadow Parkway completed.
C2B, C2B, yeah, anyway.
And very enthusiastic about that. I think Mr. Caius will beat everybody out and want to be the first one on that bridge. So with that, clerk, could you please call the roll?
Allen,
Aye.
Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kenyon, Lewis, Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Open that bridge. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes or no?
So is there going to be a contest? Which one of you can get on that bridge first?
and Tepe.
Mr. Tepe?
Yes.
Thank you.
There's still a toll for you, Cliff.
Madam Chair Gums.
What do you, did Deb call you? Ouch.
Okay, is this about transportation?
It's just a comment, yes, about, I just wanted to thank Mr. Caius, pay attention. I just wanted to thank Mr. Caius, now that we brought that to the attention of everybody, that's the last step. You know, you advocated for your community and you did so well and did not retreat into that, negative space. And I just want to applaud you for that because that's what you're designed for. And I think it was a very good job. And
You missed my first 2 years here, I think.
well, I think it's admirable
You
and I
bet.
want to thank you for it.
Thanks.
So thank you for that nice comment. And I would like to just hit pause for a moment. I recently had the opportunity with Representative Ness to visit our transportation department. And I want to say how impressed I was with them. And if you have not had the opportunity to visit the transportation department, I wish you would. It is such a beautifully managed facility with such great pride. It is clean. It is one of the cleanest garages I've ever seen, certainly much cleaner than my own garage. I think we can all probably speak to that, but structured, well organized. The men working there have a sense of camaraderie and brotherhood amongst them, a partnership that they work with each other. The vehicles were spotless, both inside and out, and I actually climbed up with some challenge to get up into one of the snowmobiles or whatever, take away the snow.
Trucks.
And it is a great place to see. So I would suggest that all of you, if you haven't had the opportunity, schlep on out there. It's a little bit of a ride from here and enjoy it because you will be completely impressed with it. And I see Tom out here and I'd like to thank him for that. Thank you for your leadership and Carl's leadership for putting together such a great pride for Kane County. So those I guess were my comments. Are there any other committee updates? Yes, Ms. Bates.
I am happy to announce that the Energy and Environmental Committee and the wonderful staff that we have, including Sarah Hinshaw and Jody Wolnick, we submitted our grant proposal for the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant before 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on April 1st. So that's all submitted. We've received our confirmation back. We've received thank yous from the people who have proposal. Kane County would keep about $40 or $50 million of that for climate pollution reduction measures, including EV chargers, some solar and energy efficiency for our buildings, and our climate pollution reduction grant coalition made the front page of the Beacon News on Monday. Top headlines. So I'm just so proud of the work of the staff for Kane County.
And I've read in that article that Aurora has joined
Yes.
us in that coalition.
Yes, many, Elgin joined, Aurora joined, Kane County was, so we were the leaders of this. DuPage, Naperville, Mokino. I have to find out where Mokino is. Waukegan is in. Will County. We built a coalition that has never happened before. And come hell or high water, we're going to keep that coalition together. So.
Thank you.
Good neighbors.
Anybody else? We've always worked well with Aurora. Well, and
Canoe shoot?
yes, yes. Mr. Caius.
This is Caius, just for two committees, the Riverboat. I'd like to thank Scott Berger for the last year with all of the finance things that have happened, making our job on the Riverboat Committee in an easy task, a relatively easy task, and to announce that the nonprofits and local governments can still submit applications until midnight Friday, May 17th for the approximately $1 million in gap funding for activities in education, environment, and economic development. So if you know nonprofits that are interested in, what'd I say, May? Nope, that's the deadline. That's according to our PIO anyway. In administration, the master plan, which many of you have, I'm sure, wondered where it's gone, or we're still looking for a place to bring it and actually have a COW meeting that we can have it at, but it's not, we want to do that final presentation, hopefully in April or May. So look forward to that. On new buildings or the acquisition of new buildings, we're working on the building assessments for those two buildings we discussed. And paperwork, hopefully we will have more information by the admin committee next Wednesday, a week from
Good.
afterwards.
Good.
So
Good.
more information you decide, digest. And of course, back to the capital plan, look forward on in the pages of all of our recent agendas.
Okay, thank you. Barb, anybody else? Nobody else? All right, Mr. Kenyon.
I'd like to move we adjourn, and this has been a very informative meeting.
Why,
It's long,
thank
but
you.
it was long for, I think, good reasons. And
Well, thank
you.
I hope people who listen to it know what's going on.
Good.
So I move we adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
They have a
Second?
second.